In the SCP universe, don't get me wrong, I love reality benders and big bad creatures and monsters and scary stuff. But what I really love the most in the SCP Foundation is the deep lore and stories that go around some of the people in it and some of the things that aren't entities. To me, it takes a lot of effort to turn an object, an anomalous object, into an entire story. And this is SCP-767 by Dr. Bob. Crime scene photographs. I'm so intrigued by this. I'm ready to get it. I hope y'all are too, guys. Make sure to subscribe to Dr. Bob and let's get into this reaction.
You'll be starting out with cold cases. The police chief tells the detective who has just arrived for his first day at the precinct. We've got more than enough to keep you busy, so head on down to the archives and get started. The new detective is looking forward to taking on these unsolved crimes. Cracking the overlooked and long since forgotten cases is one of his specialties. And it brings him great joy to solve the puzzles that no one else has been able to.
What about anomalous
The
puzzles,
detective heads to a part of the police station that doesn't look like it sees much foot traffic, where he finds the door labeled Archives. Inside the room, the air is musty, and when the detective sets down his bag on a table, a thick cloud of dust is ejected and makes him sneeze. He takes out the list of cases he's supposed to be working on and goes to a shelf containing rows and rows of evidence boxes.
The crime shows always have these boxes
looking through the files inside.
Evidence and stuff.
It's full of police reports, witness statements, crime scene photos, and even bits of evidence. Hours pass as the detective goes down his list, looking through box after box, report after report. He finds that it's best to take a cursory survey first and see if anything leaps out at him before drilling down to start combing through the details. As he pulls down the last box from his list of cases that the chief told him to work on, he notices something. High up on a shelf, nestled among the many identical cardboard boxes, is what looks to be a piece of leather luggage. He can't help but wonder what this is doing here in the archives. Is it a piece of evidence from another case that got left here for some reason? Or did someone simply forget their bag after they finished looking through old files?
I have a feeling it's
whatever the reason it's here, he has a job to do, and investigating this bag isn't on his list. But then again, he knows he won't be able to focus until he knows what this bag is and what's inside.
It's not just
He'll let himself take just a quick peek, then it's back to work. The detective returns to the shelf with the bag. It looks like it's been here for a long time. There's a layer of dust covering it that's as thick as anything else in the room. He takes it down and blows the dust off the bag. He unlatches it, and inside he finds
photos?
A folder. Is this just another report? But what's it doing here? Maybe they ran out of boxes one day and someone decided to use an old briefcase instead.
You think?
The detective takes out the folder and opens it. Just as he suspected, it is another case report. It's only a single page, though, with several photographs paper-clipped to it.
Are they
He takes the photos off the report and begins looking through them. They appear to be numbered in order. And the first picture shows a mess of red liquid and chunks of what might be meat or bone. The next two show various angles of a badly mutilated corpse. It's been so violently mangled, though, that the victim is barely even recognizable as a human.
Wow.
The detective paper-clips the photos back to the report and puts it back in the case. If this murder only has one page of evidence to work with, then he is classifying it as a revisit after literally everything else in the room is solved kind of case. The detective goes back to the last box that he was looking through and starts flipping through the case files again. But something about that leather briefcase and the photos inside won't get out of his mind. Maybe there is something there. Without even realizing it, he's suddenly standing over the case again. He takes out the report and starts looking through the pictures once more.
Of it?
Again, he sees the disfigured corpse from different angles. But the fourth picture is completely different. This one shows what looks to be someone's feet.
His feet.
But they're up in the air, as if they jumped and took a picture of their shoes. There's something wrong with the picture, too. Some kind of odd discoloration around the edges. It looks like an error occurred in the development process. Why would this be in a case file? It's tugging at his curiosity. But no, he really shouldn't be spending his time on this. Not on his first day at a new job.
Away, and then he's gonna
the detective places everything back in the case and puts it back up on the shelf where he found it before deciding to call it a day. That night, he finds that he can't sleep. The detective keeps seeing the disfigured face every time he closes his eyes. And why the picture of floating feet? What does it all mean? His mind is racing, trying to make sense of it all. By the time his alarm starts beeping, the detective realizes that he hasn't slept at all.
Wow.
Later that morning, the detective is back in the chief's office again.
Not sleeping
the chief tells him that he looks awful and asks if the job is getting to him already. The detective does look terrible, and something about the room is making him very uncomfortable. The ceiling feels too low, like it moved down a foot or two since the last time he was here. It's also very dim. Who can operate in such a dark room? He stands up and asks if he can turn on some more lights, and before the chief can answer, he switches on more. The chief squints from the bright fluorescent lights coming on and tells the detective to get back to work and to make sure he gets some sleep that night. If he can't, then maybe this job isn't for him.
The
detective returns to the archives to pick up where he left off the day before and goes back to looking through the files on his list.
Check that bag.
But of course, that leather briefcase always seems to be right in his field of view. Reaching out to him, begging him to uncover its secrets.
Beckoning him.
That's it, the detective thinks. He has no choice. He has to know what's going on with this file. He takes the briefcase down again, opens the report, and starts going through the photos again. 3 pictures of a gross corpse, check. Picture 4 showing someone's feet. Nothing new there. Now it's time to finally look at the rest. The 5th picture is similar to the 4th, but the person's feet look a little closer to the ground. Wait a minute. Are these in reverse order? He looks at the next. This one doesn't have anyone in it.
That's where the briefcase is gone.
And it looks like there is writing on it, though the writing is very small. He leans in close and squints, but he still can't make it out. He runs to his own bag and searches around until he finds what he was looking for, a magnifying glass. He goes back to the picture, and with the magnifying glass, he can finally read the writing. It's above you. He snaps his head up and looks above him, but nothing is there. He laughs to himself. Of course nothing is there. Maybe the chief is right. Maybe something really is getting to him and he isn't cut out for this job.
This is creepy,
But still, he needs to learn more. He looks at the 7th picture. He sees now that he was right. These are definitely in reverse chronological order. In the next picture, he sees whoever took the photos approaching the table in the room. In the 10th photo, he sees them walking through a doorway. In the 11th, he sees them opening the door to the room.
Looks
Finally,
like his clothes
he comes to the last photo. It's a photo of the closed door to the room. There's writing on the door, and the detective can hardly believe what he is seeing when he reads it. The writing on the door says...
Archives.
Archives. The detective jumps up and spins around, but the room is empty. There's no one here but him. What's going on?
He's
is
paranoid,
this some kind
bro.
of prank? He picks up the report the pictures were attached to. There must be some answers in there. The paper appears to be a standard police report that was filled out following the discovery of a homicide. The top of the page lists the address where the murder took place. It's the very place he is now, the police station's address. Next to it is the date. It's impossible, though.
It's today.
Is today's.
Oh, snap, dude! It is an entity after all!
Archives can hold untold secrets, and many of those are often quite dangerous, as anyone familiar with the SCP Foundation is already well aware.
For sure.
Rarely is the file in the archive itself the danger, but that is exactly the case with SCP-767, a deadly series of crime scene photos that are anything but what they seem. SCP-767 is the designation for a series of anomalous objects, which were recovered from a police department's own archives. They include a series of 12 Polaroid photographs, which have been given the designation SCP-767-1 through 12, that appear to be the source of the anomalous properties surrounding the objects. Each photograph is labeled 1 through 12 in the lower left-hand corner, though they appear to be labeled in reverse chronological order. When viewed in reverse, that is, starting with the picture labeled 12, the photos depict a first-person perspective of someone entering a room and examining a table. The table will have writing on it, which alternates between the iterations of SCP-767, and will either read, "It's above you," or "On the ceiling," written with a red substance that appears to be fresh blood. The next photos continue to be from a first-person perspective and will show the person taking the photos being lifted up into the air above the table, with wisps of black smoke visible around the edges of the frame that look at first glance like either photo development issues or damage to the picture.
That's what the
final 3 pictures depict a fresh corpse that has been so heavily mutilated by lacerations that it is completely unrecognizable. While the last picture shows a body that appears to have been virtually liquefied in some way, with gore and viscera spread around the room. The origin of these photos is unknown, and it's unknown if they were ever taken at all or merely manifested in some way. When the photos are taken to a new location and are allowed to remain there for 1 week, they will change to reflect a room within the building where they are being kept, with the individual portrayed in the photos being an image of the last person to experience the photo's frightening effects. More on what those are later.
Okay.
The ability of SCP-767 to change based on the location it is in is also present in SCP-767-13 and 14, which are the police report and the brown leather valise that always accompany the photos. The police report has an address and date at the top, both of which will somehow change to reflect the current date and location of SCP-767, while the leather briefcase has a gold monogram on it that will change to whatever the name is of the owner or head of the structure that it is contained in. But that is far from where the anomalous properties of SCP-767 end. Individuals who are exposed to the photographs will experience a wide range of effects that are based on how far into the photo series they look. Those that view SCP-767-1 through 3 will report feeling no special effects, besides the normal reaction one has to seeing a badly mutilated corpse, with most describing the photos as weird or disturbing.
Yeah.
Those that view the photos labeled 4 through 6, though, will usually report that they have developed feelings of claustrophobia, with many also reporting a newfound bout of nyctophobia, that is, fear of the dark, or more specifically, a fear of the potential for bad things to happen in the dark. These fears will also vary in intensity based on how many of the photos were viewed. Subjects who are exposed to the 7th, 8th, and 9th photos will feel an overwhelming desire to inspect the ceiling, and most are observed snapping their heads upwards immediately after reading the writing on the table in the photo.
Right.
In later interviews, subjects have described the feeling as instinctual, or as if someone had yelled the words at them like a warning. Following this, the subject will experience a sensation of being watched, and will usually report having persistent chills.
So creepy.
Those who view the final 3 photos will appear to suffer a fear-induced paralysis effect when they attempt to move away from the photos. A shadowy, black, effervescent mass will begin to form on the ceiling directly above the subject, which has been designated SCP-767-15, though the presence of this mass has only been reported by in-person witnesses, as it doesn't appear on photographic or video recordings. Tendrils of the gaseous material will reach down from the mass and grab the affected subject, lifting them up into the air before violently attacking them. The subject will suffer deep lacerations as the tendrils cut into it before it completely destroys them, leaving them as little more than a pool of blood and pieces of flesh. The nature of this dark cloud of gas, where it comes from, or why it engages in this behavior is currently unknown, and attempts to stop it once it has gotten hold of its victim have only led to those who intervene being pushed away by a powerful force, with all weapons passing harmlessly through the mass. In the time since its discovery by the SCP Foundation, multiple other unsolved cases of victims that appear to suffer similar fates have been identified, and investigations into whether they are connected to SCP-767 and the 767-15 entity are ongoing.
I wonder if you can
The SCP-767-1 through 12 photos are to be kept inside of the SCP-767-13 report, which is itself stored within the brown leather SCP-767-14 valise. And the entire group is kept at an SCP Foundation Hazardous Items Secure Containment Center. Due to the little we understand about its nature or origin, the entirety of the anomalous objects that make up SCP-767, including the SCP-767-15 entity, have been classified as Euclid, and any access to the objects requires written authorization from at least one Level 4 site administrator. SCP-767 may not be the most dangerous file in the SCP Foundation's archive, but it may just be the most dangerous literal file.
Right.
There are plenty other surprisingly dangerous objects that can impact you in ways you never expected, though. Like SCP-1875, the antique chess automaton that is capable of powerful effects that you have to see to believe. Go watch that file examination right now.
Good stuff, man. Good stuff, Dr. Bob. I gotta say, man, it's interesting SCPs like this that keep me always glued to my chair. I really, really like I said, not this big bad monster, even though there is some sort of demon that manifests. It's not necessarily a demon, it's some sort of power, but like the anomalous objects, or I don't know, it's just very intriguing to me, you know? It's not the monster in the closet stuff. Even though I love that stuff, I don't know, I'm over-justifying it. At any rate, I hope y'all really enjoyed this one, guys, as much as I did. Make sure to subscribe to Dr. Bob, as well as a couple other reaction videos that I've done, guys. Thanks so much for watching. As always, this is Zueljin signing off. We'll see you next time. Break it down.